welcome back to PoducateMe, the ESL podcast.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. And actually, I wanted to start today with asking you a question. So, my question to you is, uh, you know, when you're having a conversation with someone, have you ever, even before the thought came out or like mid-sentence, considered, oh, okay, is this okay to say? Is this the right thing to say? Am I offending anyone if I say this?
That definitely happened to me on multiple occasions.
Yeah.
And this is, guys, political correctness
Yes.
in action.
Yeah. And I think when we are talking about political correctness, we want to talk a little bit about like what does it mean? Where
Hmm.
does it come from? Maybe a little bit of the controversy, I guess, but in within political correctness, and give some examples because it is a really important part of language and culture and communicating with people. So we
Hmm.
thought that it would be a really interesting topic to talk about and give you guys some ideas about where political correctness is represented or where it is valid,
Yeah. And
right?
also, I believe that nowadays it is such a sore topic everywhere, like on social media. You can see tons of videos and
Yeah,
articles that talk about political correctness.
that's right.
So let's dive in into a definition
Yeah.
of political
So,
correctness.
what does political correctness mean, Helen?
So, excuse me. So, political correctness, often shortened for PC,
Yeah.
means using language that tries to avoid offending or marginalizing any group of people, especially the groups that historically have faced discrimination.
Yes.
I would also call it a kind of a linguistic behavior.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes. And I guess that in the world where we live, it is very important, the
Definitely.
political correctness.
Yeah. And so this actual term political correctness, it really became popular in the 1980s and the 1990s, and very specifically in Western countries. So when we say like Western countries, I guess we're talking about like Western English speaking countries. So
Hmm.
Canada, America, that type of thing.
Hmm.
And in these countries, people became more aware of like social equality and using inclusive language. Because again, places like Canada, places like America, it's a huge melting pot, right? Like you have so many different cultures coming together, and historically, a lot of these cultures or these countries or the places that these people come from
Hmm.
were not on an equal setting, right? So
Not
as
at all.
people kind of became part of a society together, there are these conversations of, okay, so maybe the language that we were using before is not maybe appropriate to use now. So how can we adjust the language to make everybody feel included, right?
Yeah.
And make things a little bit more on equal ground, right?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, like you said, kind of this term political correctness these days, it is a little bit polarizing because it is seen as like, oh, it's a leftist point
Yeah.
of view.
We're going to
Yeah,
talk more
so
about it.
it's a little bit of a catch-22, I would say, like
Yeah.
because the actual term can be, is it like PC, the actual term? So yeah,
Hmm.
anyway, that's
We also wanted to make a little note that this episode is not about judging people or different opinions. We just want to explore how the language changes to make everyone around us feel comfortable and inclusive and to show respect and equality. And especially for us as language teachers here in Canada, we think that it is very important to ensure that the language we teach is inclusive, that it
yes.
includes everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And language changes all the time. So that's why it's always really important for us to kind of stay up to date and stay in the know of what is like the current language that we should be using,
Hmm.
right?
True.
And again, it's not a political episode, right?
It's not a political episode.
It's an
We're talking
everybody
language.
exactly, and it is an everybody is welcome episode, right? We
Exactly.
want to make
Yeah.
everybody feel welcome. We want everyone to feel like safe in whatever conversation we're having, and we want to spread that welcomeness and safeness and
Mm-hmm.
that feeling and all of that stuff. So again, not a political episode. We're not claiming any sort of politics here,
Nope.
but all we're doing is just trying to talk about how language changes.
Exploring. We're on
Exploring.
our exploration path.
We are
as always.
exactly, and we're always learning new things. And um, some of the things that we might say now might be outdated a year from now
That is
because
so true.
that is how fast language changes. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's pretty much the disclaimer that we want to give right from
Awesome.
the beginning.
Yeah. Thanks, Hannah.
Sure.
So we wanted to talk about certain areas where political correctness is very common.
Yes.
And I guess that it would be fair to start with gender and pronouns. What do you think?
Yeah, yeah. It's, I think, one of the biggest areas where PC is very important,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it is, yeah, one of the first and one of the most common, right? So it's, I would say, even up to like when I was growing up, for sure, language was very gendered, right? So you would have terms, jobs specifically, where there was a different word for a man with the job,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was a different word for a woman with that job. And since then, that has completely shifted, and we are avoiding any sort of use of gendered roles or gendered job roles, right? And I think, in my opinion, I guess, I think the reason why this is changing a lot, or this has changed, is because, a long time ago, people just assumed that a lot of like powerful positions, or there were certain positions that were mainly held by men. But this is,
Mm-hmm.
of course, not the case anymore, right?
No,
So
it's not.
now we aim for a lot of these gender neutral terms that
Mm-hmm.
includes everyone. So do you want to give some examples?
Yeah, just a second. I just realized that the Ukrainian language has
Yeah.
been going through some changes recently as well.
Oh.
And we actually also added a lot of professions that are that have like feminine, like female, like what shift that shifted from like just male to female.
Oh.
And this is amazing, actually. I
Yeah.
just realized it. Yeah, for a lot
Yeah.
of, especially very interestingly, terms like director and manager. So before we had them as a male, like
Mm-hmm.
gender, but now they added the suffix to it that can represent the female doing
That's
this job.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's so fun. Yeah, and you know what? It's sometimes it's hard to come up with these examples because I was asking you earlier, like, are there any like PC language or PC terms in your
Yeah,
languages?
so
And you're like, no, I can't think of any. But
exactly. And now we were just talking about it, and I'm like, oh my God, yes, they've done it like very recently. Like I'm talking about like a couple of years ago,
mm-hmm.
but they did change it. And yeah, it's beautiful.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome.
Okay, so these kind of roles that we were talking about that used to be, I guess, traditionally held by men and positions of power. You're thinking like chairman, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fireman, policeman, salesman, right? So again, like we don't really use this term anymore, and it has changed to, for example, chairperson instead of
Mm-hmm.
chairman, firefighter instead of fireman, police officer instead
Mm-hmm.
of policeman, salesperson or sales
Salesperson,
associate
sales
instead of
associate,
salesman, right?
flight attendants,
Yeah. So
servers.
there was, one category, I guess, where it was just man, like the job ended in man and it switched over.
Mm-hmm.
There are some where there are like male and female endings where that language has disappeared completely and has been replaced with a new word. So the example that you just gave was flight attendant
Instead of
and
steward and stewardess.
Stewardess. Yeah, yeah. So you can see like steward is for a man, stewardess, the ESS ending is for a woman.
Actor, actress,
Actor, actress,
waiter, waitress.
waiter, waitress. Waiter, waitress is now replaced with server, right? So
Server.
new words that are gender neutral, that do not place any sort of male, female gender on the actual job or the actual term, I guess.
Interestingly, I was thinking about the word nurse.
Yeah.
Because the word nurse, like for whatever reason, for Russian Ukrainian speaking people, it's like only the female role.
Yeah.
So they would also, because in our first language, we would say medical sister and medical brother.
Oh.
Yeah, we call them like this.
Okay.
And they would be like, "Why do you call a medical brother then?" And I was always like, male nurse.
Well, so that's actually, it can go the other way, right? So
Yeah.
so a nurse was traditionally seen as a female
That is true.
job.
Mhm.
And I think this is something that maybe should be changed a little bit more, but when there is a nurse that's not female, we refer to it as a male
As a
nurse,
male
which is
nurse.
not PC.
Not PC,
No.
yeah.
So maybe we need to come up with a new term for the
Yeah,
word
but it's
nurse.
one word,
Yeah.
okay? Out of like all of the
Very
policemen
true.
and firemen and so on and so
We are
forth.
making good progress
Yeah,
so far,
that is so true.
I would say.
Another very important thing when we talk about the genders is and pronouns is about people who identify themselves as non-binary.
Yeah.
And they can choose their pronoun to be they, them.
Yeah.
And it's another very important thing to respect that,
Yeah.
especially if people tell you that they want to be addressed as such. And very interestingly, I had to learn it that if you look at the person and you do not know how to address them, the best way of action is to just ask them
Yeah.
what pronoun they prefer.
The whole idea is even if you're looking at somebody and you know making some sort of a judgment on what they look
Or
like,
assumption.
it's not assuming that they go by a certain pronoun, right? So it is either asking what a preferred pronoun is, or referring to people as they, them, until they express to you, right?
Yeah,
What their
so
preferred
true.
pronoun is. So and even if it's somebody that you've never met or somebody that you don't know, it is a good idea just to use they, them, right? Because you never know. So
And you don't want to assume.
yeah, exactly. You don't want to assume. So for example, like if I would, if we had just met and I'm talking to you and you say, "Oh, my partner is abroad at the moment for his job or for their job," and then I would not. I don't want to assume that this person's partner is a male or female, whatever. So I would simply just use a they, them, right? So what do they do? Oh, what do they do for work?
Yeah.
Right? Instead of using like, what does he do for work or what does she do for work? So instead of making that assumption, using the they, them is just that very simple way that you can include everybody.
Very simple,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And also for some gender neutral terms, like let's say friend, if I'm telling Hannah, like, "Oh, yesterday I hang out with my friend," and then again, Hannah can ask me if she doesn't know who I'm talking about. She can ask, so, "Oh, where do they live?" Until I say, "Oh, she lives there," or
Yeah.
"He lives here."
Yeah.
So it's also not only about being politically correct, but it's also a very good language tip. If you don't know, or like if someone tells you like, "Oh my God, my teacher is like so mean," and then you do not know if this teacher is a male or a female, so you can ask like, "Oh, like what do they do?"
What did they do?
Yeah, to like make you feel this way.
Yeah, exactly. Just a very simple way that you can just make it equal and not offend anyone, right?
Yeah.
Very, very simple way. And not, it is a very simple word, but it is a difficult shift. So again, like language changes, right? When I was young, the idea of neutralizing, like not genderizing pronouns didn't exist, right? And it's again something that you kind of have to accept and be flexible with and change as you get older. So it did take a little bit of getting used to, even as a native English speaker.
for me too, not
Yeah.
a native English speaker and being born and raised in a country where there's no such thing
Yeah.
as like gender
No
pronouns.
such thing
Yeah,
as gender.
no such thing as gender. We're all
Wow, you guys are
genderless.
really
Yeah.
evolved.
Although you know what, one of my very dear students, he was always telling me that like teacher is a genderless person. So yeah, maybe that's true.
Maybe.
Anyway, so for me, it also took some adjustment, but it's also a great challenge to be, I don't know, for me personally, to be a better person and to be more adapted to the country where I live in.
Yeah,
And I hold citizenship of this country. So I
exactly.
guess that this is like my first duty
As a
to,
Canadian.
as a Canadian, to explore these new areas and to become familiar with them
Yeah,
and start not only become familiar with them, but also practicing them on daily basis.
yeah.
So sometimes it goes crazy when I have to talk to my family back home. I do have a friend who goes by they, them.
Hmm.
And so when I tell my family about them, I speak Russian to my family.
Hmm.
And so I have to use them in Russian. And they would be like, "Psh," like, why
Why?
them? Like, why? And I do understand that for them, it doesn't make like
Yeah,
any sense, even though I have explained it on like multiple occasions.
yeah.
It's still like just they cannot like
Of course, it's
comprehend it.
when you're not in like actively living in a society that's using a particular language, it's hard to look at it from an outside point of view. I
Hmm.
totally understand that. It
Hmm.
definitely gets getting used to, but yeah, props to you for still being
Yes.
very
I'm trying.
good with
I'm really trying, and I love exploring this
awesome,
area and finding new things. And
awesome.
actually, your question, it was a great question at the beginning of this episode, because I do often catch myself that like, am I saying this? Like, is it okay to say this?
Yeah.
Is it okay to do that? Even remember, I asked you about. It's not about linguistic behavior. It's about, I don't know what kind of a behavior. Um, we were going camping, and I have this beautiful orange T-shirt that talks about the Reconciliation Day. It
Yes.
has beautiful like indigenous patterns on it, and it says like "We never forget."
Hmm.
And I love this T-shirt. It's a beautiful T-shirt, but I was worried if it's okay to wear it not on the Reconciliation Day.
Mm.
So I had to do a Google search about it, because yeah, so now it's not just like randomly you go and then people tell you that like, oh, it's not okay, but I understand that I catch myself before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's
I
it's
think I
interesting.
think that runs through a lot of people's heads all the time, entering a conversation or especially with somebody that you don't know and or somewhere that's unfamiliar. And honestly, even just having that thought is such a
Yeah,
great first step
it
to
is.
reflect and think of like, okay, am I being inclusive in the language that I'm using? Just that first step of questioning it and considering it is awesome. Like it's a
Hmm.
really great thing to do, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Okay, so another area where
Oof.
political correctness is very common is when we're talking about race and ethnicity. And one of the reasons, of course, is because of history.
Sad
Historically, in the
history.
Western countries, you've got colonialism, slavery, discrimination with, you know, different times and different ways of how different people immigrated to the country, right? That this has really, like, in the beginning, it shaped uh, the way that racial and like ethnic groups have been described in language. And so, of course, times are different, right? So, one words that were once common during those times, like during colonialism or during slavery, is recognized is considered to be like outdated or considered to be offensive because
Even
of
like a slur. Yeah.
exactly because of the historical context that it carries, right? And so, you know, um, there are a lot of terms that are being used these days that we are trying to really use to make sure that we're not offending a certain group or discriminating or kind of like pushing down another group,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's really what it's all about. And, you know, I think I don't want to get into like very specific examples, but it is
Yeah,
something
we
that
can
we know
give a
we want
couple.
to acknowledge. And also one thing that I want to really mention here is uh, PC language surrounding race and ethnicity can be very different based on where you live, right? So I do sometimes recognize there are differences between even like Canada and America, right? So
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
one really big example would be like the term African American.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're living in Canada, you are not African American because you're not American, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, there are other terms and uh, things that we would say to describe. And of course, you don't even want to like describe somebody based on their race in
Exactly.
general. That's not
Yeah.
something that you want to be doing in the first place. But another term, for example, that is different, I would say, between Canada and America is when we are talking about the native people from this area, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in America, I believe they are would be called indigenous
Indigenous
people.
people.
And I think in a lot of different countries, it can be directly translated to indigenous people. In Canada, we refer to these people as First Nations people,
Mm-hmm.
right? So um, again, political correct term, and it's a respectful way of um, acknowledging, right?
That is so
They're the
true.
first ones
Yeah.
here.
For me, was a big learning curve when I
Yeah,
came to Canada because I came from the country where we do not have diversity, right?
yeah, it's
So,
homogenous.
yep. And a lot of the terms that Hannah mentioned before that are here considered slur and derogatory language, we use them back home. And we don't use it as offensive or derogatory. It's just like what we call people coming from certain nations or countries.
Mhm.
And so coming here to Canada and having to learn all of that stuff, it was a huge learning curve.
You know what I just thought of as well? When I was in Korea, anyone that's not Korean that comes in and they come in with some sort of a visa, like a working visa or a study visa or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, they get what's called an ARC card.
Oh, yes.
And do you know what it means?
No.
It's alien registration card.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay.
And yeah, I don't think that word alien is
Yeah.
used any. I mean, I don't think it should be used anymore, but yeah, that was a very common word. Foreigner and alien is was very common
Mm-hmm.
in Korea to refer to people that were not Korean. And
Yeah.
also Korea is a very homogenous society as well, so again, takes a little bit of time to catch up language-wise, right?
Yeah.
Um, the other thing I want to really like touch on when it comes to uh, people's like a person's race and ethnicity is I think my biggest advice is to individualize the language rather than generalizing the
Mm-hmm.
language, right? So rather than saying, you know, uh, assuming that a person is from a certain ethnicity or a certain culture, you can individualize it. Like mention the country that the person is actually from, right?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of even just saying like Asian, you can say like, oh, they are of Korean heritage, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah, I think another like little kind of PC thing that's shifted is rather than calling people minorities, because
Yeah.
a long time ago, people of color used to be called minorities. If you were living in Canada or living in America, for example, I would be called a minority. But the fact is, like, I don't think we're a minority anymore. And a term that is used, I think, that would be considered PC is a POC or
Yeah.
person of color,
Person of color.
or BIPOC, which is Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So it includes a
It's like
group.
an umbrella
It's an
term.
umbrella
Yeah.
term. But again, I think the best advice would be to individualize rather than generalize.
I love it how in this episode I am following the history of my education
Mm-hmm.
about political correctness here in Canada,
Mm-hmm.
because something that you mentioned before, you said like, why would you describe someone by like their ethnicity, talking about them? And so I have a story about you actually.
About me, okay.
Yes. So we've been friends for like what, more than 2 years, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And when we, of course, I talked about you a lot to my family and to my very close friend who's here in Canada. And so to the point that, like, whenever I would be like, me and Hannah did this, me and Hannah did that. So he stopped asking, like, oh, who's Hannah? So he knows who you are,
Okay.
right? And then it was actually before we aired our episodes. So he did not see you. He didn't know what you look like.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like maybe half a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him the story about conference and the chopsticks and our friend. And so he was like, yeah, but why is this like funny? Like, why did he like ask Hannah about the chopsticks? And I'm like, well, because Hannah is of Korean heritage. And he's like, Hannah is of Korean heritage?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you never told me. So he didn't know. And I was like, well, see, I don't see race.
Don't see color.
Exactly.
Do not see color.
Yeah. So it got me thinking that, like, in all of the things that I was telling him about, like, you and I and like stuff we were doing and about you in general, I never actually mentioned it because, like, why?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how is that related to any of the stories?
Yeah.
For those of you wondering about the chopstick story, maybe we'll talk about it one day.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was a teaser.
It was just a little. It was a joke during the conference.
Yeah, but now it's like our inside joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you wanna...
Yeah. So the next very important topic is disability and health, of course, where political correctness takes a huge place among all of the other topics.
Yeah.
Because for a long time, people with disabilities were described in a way that defined them by their condition. And nowadays, of course, we want to use the language that uh, doesn't describe them as their conditions.
Yeah.
Right.
Emphasis
on
the person,
not
the condition.
Exactly. So, for example, for people with autism or even for people on the spectrum, we would not call them autistic people. Uh, Again, depending on preference of a person, you can always ask, but you would call them neurodivergent.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good term to address that. Same thing goes for people who are visually impaired.
Yes.
Visually impaired is a politically correct term instead of saying blind person.
Yeah. Calling somebody like a blind person, again, puts the emphasis on the condition, right? Not the person.
Yeah.
So like just a couple of little differences in terms of like how we refer to people.
Mhm.
And again, we don't want to like refer to them by their condition.
Exactly. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. So it's more empowering when you're individualizing the person, not the group.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And putting emphasis on the person.
Yeah.
And not on their condition,
Yeah.
as we said before.
And again, this is one area that is rapidly changing. Like the terms that I thought were politically correct 10 years ago are not anymore, right? So, you always just have to kind of make sure that you're using the correct terms.
Yeah, again, you're keeping up with this changes.
This is one area that I think it's okay. One big difference in this area is a long time ago, or maybe even not that long ago, even now, a lot of people do this, but sometimes when you want to like insult somebody or say something like in a way, but it's actually considered really derogatory or offensive because you're putting a negative connotation on the actual condition, right? So for example, like, I point something out, oh my God, look at that bird. and you're like, what? I don't, what bird? I'm like, "Oh, are you blind? A
Mm-hmm.
comment like this is really, it's not really okay, right?
No.
You don't want to push down, like you don't want to punch down in that way, right? So
Yeah.
that's something that
Sad.
using conditions as an insult, I guess that would be the generic kind of category
Mm.
that you would put that in, right? So avoiding using that type of language is also, I would say, a piece of advice here.
Yeah.
And another area where political correctness is quite common is when we're talking about appearance
Mm-hmm. Or
and
people's age.
age.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this can actually be unintentional and uh, innocent, but it can be offensive to a lot of people. So when we talk about the language that we use to describe people, it really does shape how um, beauty or like worth is perceived, right?
Mm-hmm.
So ageism, body shaming, these are actual real current issues that we have in our society, and just making sure that you're using kind of political correct or inclusive non-offensive language just really emphasizes like normalizing diversity
Yeah.
in bodies and life stages and things like
Mm-hmm.
that, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
And there are a lot of things that you can say instead of the thing that the first pops up in your mind,
Yeah.
maybe. So instead of calling someone fat when you're describing people, you can say plus sized person. Or in terms of ageism, not calling someone old, but you can call someone elderly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Although
would be really nice.
I call myself old all the
I mean, when we
time.
call ourselves old souls and whatever stuff, I guess it's
And
it's different when you're describing someone.
amongst friends.
Yes,
Amongst
yeah,
friends.
in a
Yeah.
safe space.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So I mean, I think we kind of touched on it, and I think just even like having a conversation about political correctness is um, really important,
It is very important, and
especially for language learners.
yes, and I've learned a lot.
Yeah.
Today I was a kind of a listener, just like a support. But thank you, Hannah. That was very interesting
Of
to
course.
listen to,
And
especially growing up in this and like
yeah,
seeing how things are changing. Because I guess that it was even more challenging for you. Because for me, I came as an adult
yeah,
already, like understanding how life and things work, and especially working with the language. So I had to learn it all at once, let's say.
hmm,
But for you, as you said, even like 10 years ago, things were different.
yeah,
So you had to, like, through different stages of your life, relearn how to use certain words or what
for
words were not okay.
for sure. Like there are some things that were very commonly used when I was young or when I was growing up that is uh, totally politically incorrect to say
Mm-hmm.
right now. And I even just thinking about it now makes me cringe because it's like, how could I have ever used that language? But it's true that, times change
Yeah.
and we really have to develop ourselves as time changes.
Yeah.
Like we do have to learn to really be flexible. And I think this is the biggest challenge, right? Just being able to understand, accept, and follow the changes that
Mm-hmm.
society is making for the better,
For the better.
and this
That's
is
true.
this is what's really
Yeah.
important. The language is changing for the better, right? And we just want to try and keep up with it and try to um, yeah, and I feel like I've said this a million times in this episode, but be inclusive with it.
Be inclusive.
Yeah,
That's 100%.
yeah.
And also, it's very interesting to notice how the language changes. Guys, you can just watch some movies from not so long ago, movies, TV shows that were super popular. Everybody loved them. And now we watch them, and certain situations, certain expressions, certain words are like, yeah,
That
like
didn't
they are
age well.
cringy. Exactly. I love this expression.
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't
There's
age well.
there's an expression where people say that did not age well because it's something that maybe was okay in a show or a
Yeah.
movie,
But now it's
but now
not.
it's
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Anyway, that was a great talk. Thank you once again,
Thank
Hannah. I
you.
hope that you guys learned a lot of stuff too today. And remember that political correctness is not about limiting the freedom of speech. It's about being nice.
It's the opposite.
It's the opposite.
It's about
Guys,
growing
it's about growing. It's about being inclusive. It's about being a citizen of this planet Earth.
Very,
Yes.
very true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I said, it means to be nice. And as we know, it takes $0 to be nice, right?
It's free.
Yeah. Awesome. So we would love to hear from you, as always, your thoughts. Tell us maybe about your home countries, if there are any changes that are happening to your first languages in terms of political correctness, maybe gender neutrality, or some other things. Send us an email at eslpoducateme@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at PoducateMe.
And until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and
Podugate
podugate yourself.
and stay politically correct.